Hi, my name is Carol Corvalã. I'm the CISO of PagBank, so Take Stock starts now.
2 minutes to go into the close here on what is set to be another history-setting day on Wall Street, at least for the Russell 2000. The small caps, the best of the bunch across the major market indexes. The final tail of the tape with about 90 seconds to go or so into the close, as we are expecting fresh all-time highs for the close for the New York Stock Exchange Composite Index, as well as for the small caps. Utilities, industrials, and technology stocks, those are your big winners out of the 11 sectors in the S&P 500. Though we do have losses to the downside, those laggards include energy, healthcare, as well as telecom. Welcome to the broadcast, one and all. You are watching Taking Stock. I am your host, JD Durkin. Mere moments away, my friends, from the ringing of the iconic closing bell here at the big board. Gold and silver both taking a little bit of a breather after what has been a remarkable run of all-time high after all-time high. Oil benchmarks, WTI and Brent crude, both down about 3% or so on the day. And the crypto majors are all down as well. We'll talk a lot more about crypto price action coming up in just a bit here on the show. The Magnificent Seven tech stocks are in mixed territory. The big winner out of the bunch is NVIDIA. Shares up better than 2%. Google shares, Alphabet rather, down 1%. Also catching a bid on this Thursday, the airlines led by United, the home builders led by Toll Brothers, the retail names for the most part in positive territory rather, led by Deckers, and the semiconductors off the incredible earnings report from Taiwan Semi, which we'll break down in just a bit. The team from Carlisle, ticker symbol CSL, here to do the honors. With the sound of those three gavel strikes, we officially bring about a close to the closing auction here on Wall Street. A record-setting day for the NYSE Composite Index, as well as for the Russell 2000. Let's take a look and give you your final tail of the tape on this Thursday, January 15th. How is it already January 15th? The S&P 500 up, let's call it 0.3. The Dow 30 components up, I believe that's 0.6. The NYSE Composite Index up 0.4, and the small caps, the best of the bunch, up almost a full percent. Let's bring in our good friend Sarah Foster to kick off the show. She is U.S. economy reporter and analyst at Bankrate. Thank you for being here, as always.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah, always great to be here.
We're still, there seems like there's so much choppiness, so much volatility, so much uncertainty. We're still right about at all-time highs. What are you tracking for price action?
I'm calling it falling up the stairs. It's, choppy, the markets are volatile, but I think for the first time in a long time, what I'm hearing from many economists that I'm talking to is that there's optimism. We run a quarterly survey. 50% of the economists that we polled say that growth could be above trend this year. Only 20% expect it to be below trend. I think there's a lot to be really positive about, the usual suspects, inflation, the labor market slowing. That is maybe kind of an uncertainty here. But when you look at just the resilience of the economy, and I think even when you look at what the Fed is expected to do, they're cutting interest rates towards the end of the year, and that has really kind of been kind of a tailwind for many people.
We're still not expecting a Fed cut January 28th, right?
Patience is really the word here, I think, for the Fed. Last time I looked, which, things change in a hurry, 32%, that's the odds of 2 rate cuts this year. The Fed is likely going to be patient to start the year, and that's just because of the data that we've gotten lately with inflation, with the labor market. Especially with inflation, I'm still seeing some government shutdown-related distortions, some of those service sector costs. Airline prices, they bumped down in November, they ticked back up in December. Apparel prices, they fell in November, they ticked back up again in December. I think the Fed is going to need some time here to kind of piece out a lot of this, the noisiness, and just wait for the fog to clear.
Sarah, what else was in the Bankrate survey that you think is important for people to follow along with?
I think it's important to know, I think that recession odds, those are the lowest in a year that we've seen, 28%.
Wow.
A lot of these economists that we pulled are really pointing to AI spending as driving growth forward. In addition to an easier Fed, mandate, I think we're also kind of looking here at tax refunds being higher, 18% according to some estimates from Wells Fargo. But I'm also focused, on what this means for everyday people. Economists are very optimistic, but people that we survey are very downbeat. The most people since 2018 actually say that they expect that their finances could get worse in the year ahead. And that's, the same story here, the K-shaped economy of so many people in these lower income sectors. They're the ones who are feeling it a lot differently than those upper income folks involved in the stock market.
Yeah, I was about to ask about the K-shaped economy. Some people call it a tree-shaped economy. Pick your kind of shape of choice there. Who is the economy largely helping? What more do we have a sense for consumer confidence and consumer sentiment, which does drive kind of the overall economic positioning for a lot of Americans and how they spend money in the day-to-day economy?
Yeah, we just released a survey at Bankrate that found that about 50% of cardholders are actually carrying debt from month to month. Long-term credit card debt is also on the rise. It's really concentrated among those lower income households, who are still dealing with inflation. We also look at, wages versus inflation. We still see that there's a little bit of a gap here, so their purchasing power, when you look back to the beginning, or at least the beginning of the recovery from the pandemic, it's still in the negatives. So that K-shaped economy is really referring to those lower income households, and then of course kind of looking back forward for what they're expected to do.
Almost out of time before I let you go. Your sense on big bank earnings, kind of a mixed picture, but we saw a fair bit of profit taking earlier this week here on Wall Street. Net interest income in question. What else have you been following there?
Yeah, very surprising. I'm also looking here this week at jobless claims, talking about the labor market. We were very surprised to see that, at least on that initial claims number, it was the lowest since January 2024. I think when it comes to the labor market, you're also looking here at job growth in 2025. It was about a fraction of what it was in 2024. So when we're talking here too about how downbeat so many households feel, I think when you look at how job growth is really just not really helping very many people find a new position. They're kind of stuck in that low hire, no fire labor market. That's another thing that I think is going to be important to watch.
Sarah Foster, one of our absolute favorite go-to guests here for Taking Stock. She is U.S. economy reporter and an analyst at Bankrate. We always love the survey data in particular. Come back anytime. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Joshua, grab your mic. Jeff, you and I will head this way and go for a walk. We'll now bring you the latest Polymarket event contract odds as Polymarket participants are trying to figure out the question, what price will Bitcoin hit in 2026? 91% odds up on Polymarket that it will hit 100,000, which it has not done since Thursday, November 13th. 44% chance it hits a fresh all-time high of 130,000 at some point this year. 16% odds it hits 170K between now and the end of 2026. 5% odds it skyrockets all the way to 250,000. The current all-time high for Bitcoin, by the way, 126,272, Monday, October 6th. That was, of course, just 4 days before this now infamous liquidation event. More than $6 million in total trade volume on that particular event contract over on Polymarket. All right, we'll take a look at one NYSE notable, and man, oh man, is there a bigger story on Wall Street today than the team from Taiwan Semi reaching yet again a fresh all-time high here on the street. The company raising their guidance for capital expenditure estimates and really boosting the overall semiconductor and AI trade today here on the street. As a result, this company provides 90% of the world's most advanced chips and is up 70% over the course of the last 52 weeks. This is the largest New York Stock Exchange listed company by market cap. We'll now bring you part two of Cheddar's Chris Castellino's ongoing robotics breakdown. He's been on the ground there at CES 2026 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Take a look.
We all go on airplanes all the time. When you come into a gate or you're leaving a gate, you always see the wing walker, the human being out there with a wand. And if it's at night, it's usually lit up and they're, moving the airplane in. This does it autonomously. That's a dangerous job. Sometimes there are not enough people on the tarmac of the airport to do it. Sometimes that's why it takes longer to get into your gate than you want it to take. Well, with these autonomously will precisely bring aircraft in and out of gates. That's really nice advancements for the airlines and for the people working on the tarmac that can do more important tasks other than waving that wand in a dangerous environment next to a jet. You'll see it hook up the HVAC and the ground power. An airplane comes into the gate, they shut the engines down, and for that 25 minutes, it's connected to power and HVAC on the ground. You'll see an autonomous robot do that as well. Another task that's repetitive, easier for a robot to do than a human being. There's almost endless opportunities, even beyond airports, where we're applying this type of robot to help work get done more effectively.
But these robots aren't just about industrial might. At CES, we're seeing a new frontier, companion robots designed for human connection. Realbotix, based in Las Vegas, have created the only robots at CES that look, speak, and interact like humans.
There's 3 use cases. So one, customer service. We've had them deployed at different places selling tickets to shows. We can have them booking room service for you or massages. So customer service roles, number 1. Number 2 would be companionship. So we've been talking to seniors' homes and residences. We've been talking to people that have, for example, autistic kids where they can interact with them. And the last would be entertainment, where they can be sort of, think about like a Madame Tussauds on steroids. We can make our robots look and sound like anyone on the planet and actually provide and have intelligent conversations with them.
Big shout out to Chris. May your circuits never short and your coffee always be strong, unlike my battery life.
What really sets Realbotix apart is the company's complex vision system.
The robots can actually look at you, and it's not just observational. What they can do is recognize your facial expressions. Is this person happy, sad, angry? They can recognize if someone's in danger and add a brain to the vision. It's more than just seeing, it's being able to intelligently react to it.
And while most of these humanoid robots tower over humans, Chinese startup Zeroth is taking a different approach. Smaller, safer robots designed specifically for the family home.
We want to build the world's first humanoid robot that can use in the family. It's a consumer-based humanoid robot. Most of the humanoid robot now is very large and very huge, so may not very safety during the room. So for the elder people, it can do the companion and do the safety control. If they feel down, it will call for the emergency people. And it's for the child, we can do the education, and we can do some also for the mental health check, these kind of things.
At a starting price of $3,000, Zeroth's smallest robot, the M1, is already available for purchase.
It's only 50 centimeters high and 2.5 kilograms. So it's very safety, even for the past, even for the younger child.
And perhaps the most transformative technology in robotics is giving them the sense of human touch. Japanese startup Zila has developed tactile sensors that can be integrated into any robotic hand or gripper. It's the missing piece that could unlock the next generation of robotic capability. The sensors can detect weight, hardness, and even the shape of objects, critical for handling items the robot has never encountered before.
For example, in factory automation, when you want to insert RAM into the motherboard, there would be, with vision alone, there can be slight misalignments, but with a sense of touch, you can feel if you're in the right place, how much force you're applying, and then you can do the insertion task without the risk of breaking anything. Other applications would be, for example, fruit picking, fruit sorting. When you pick the fruit, you don't want to damage it. Then you also want to sort it according, for example, to weight and ripeness. In the future, we also work towards humanoid robots that work in your house.
After walking the floor at CES 2026, one thing was abundantly clear. The AI robot revolution is no longer science fiction. It's happening now across every single industry. The only question remains is how quickly we can adapt to this new reality. For Cheddar, I'm Chris Castellino.
Let's do it. Welcome back to the show. Time now for the latest headlines you need to know on this Thursday in the world of fintech, crypto, and artificial intelligence headlines. First up, the crypto majors, as we mentioned off the top of the broadcast, all down for the day. Bitcoin down 1.6%, ETH down 1.8%, and Solana, the hardest hit of the majors, down 3.6% at this hour. Next up, OpenAI buying up to 750 megawatts of compute from Cerebras through 2028 in a deal that Reuters pegs at more than $10 billion. It's a big swing to speed up ChatGPT and help Cerebras diversify revenue. And finally, Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong says the exchange will not support the Senate Banking Committee's crypto bill, at least as it is written now, warning it could undercut DeFi, stablecoin rewards, and user privacy. All right, let's bring in our next guest. Kevin Lettinini joins us now. He is the CEO of Borderless.xyz, making, I believe you're taking stock debut. First time on the show.
First time on this one.
All right, it's awesome.
Thank you for having me on,
it's very
JD.
nice
I
to have
appreciate
you. Give our viewers who might be a bit unfamiliar a bit of an introduction to Borderless.xyz and among your top priorities here in 2026.
Sure. I've been in the stablecoin space for a decade now. 2026 marks 10 years, which is a long time to joke that stablecoin adoption is coming. Thankfully, we're finally there. And what we set out to do with Borderless was create the category that is now known as stablecoin payments networks. So if we imagine banks and we imagine a world in which something like SWIFT doesn't exist, and every bank has to integrate the API of every other bank it ever wants to transact with, that's obviously not scalable. We solve that through networks. In the stablecoin world, that didn't exist. If you have a local payments provider that's in Brazil who wants to transact with somebody in Africa, they've got to go and actually make these technological integrations and these relationships through a stablecoin payments network. All of a sudden now you get counterparties that are regulated entities all over the world, all in one place, make stablecoin cross-border way more scalable.
Why don't stablecoins always trade at the same price? What should people know about general pricing for the landscape if they've heard of them as potential vehicles and investment initiatives, but maybe not really know all the details?
It's a great question. There's two very specific attributes that are really important here. One is which stablecoin are you trading? So people have heard of Circle's USDC, people have heard of Tether's USDT. There's a whole bunch of other ones coming out, especially post-Genius Act. That's certainly one important element, and the reason that's important is the depth of liquidity that exists against the fiat markets. So as an example, Tether, which has been really driving adoption in the global south and has been around for a very long time, focused on these retail use cases, has a lot more trading volume and a lot more liquidity in Latin America than Circle does. So that certainly impacts the USDC BRL rate versus the USDT BRL rate. And the second is actually the payments provider or the venue. If we look at countries like Brazil, one payments provider to another, they all trade on average within 50 basis points of each other, so it's a pretty tight market. But if you go to Argentina or to Peru or some of these other markets, you can actually see 5 to 6% pricing swings, depending on which particular provider you're trading with or you're using for your payments.
Kevin, it's been 6 months or so since the passage of the Genius Act over on Capitol Hill. We've had a lot of guests talk about what it has done for the industry at long last. To your point, after all these years, where are we 6 months later?
I think we're seeing a lot more adoption. The question at the time was, is this just going to be kind of a vanity thing, or is this actually going to be, at long last, the regulation that allows for stablecoin adoption to go more mainstream at the enterprise and institutional level? Since the passing of the Genius Act, we've seen Zelle announce that they're building a stablecoin product. Zelle obviously being the bank peer-to-peer transfer system in the US. That's one of the most used ways to move money peer-to-peer in this country. We've seen Western Union announce that they're going to be launching a stablecoin. Western Union is one of the world's biggest global remittance companies. We have a customer called Bastion. Bastion has announced that they will be powering Sony's stablecoin. So you're seeing these large enterprises, whether they're corporates, money movers, bank conglomerates, they're all moving into stablecoins. So while it's still a little bit early to tell, we're 6 months in, not 6 years in, I think there's now very credible early traction that you can point to that said, yes, Genius has made a difference, and stablecoins are here to stay.
I was about to say, come back 6 months from now so you can do the 1 year recap, but I hope it's not that long until we have you back on the show. You're a great guest, Kevin. Thanks for being here.
Appreciate it.
All right, folks, don't go anywhere. Much more Taking Stock coming up live from the big board after this. All right, welcome back to the show. Time now for the latest headlines you should know on your Thursday for the world of startups, raises, and rounds at this hour. First up, Bloomberg first to report that Peter Thiel-backed crypto exchange Bitpanda is reportedly seeking a $4 to $5 billion valuation in a Frankfurt IPO as early as the first half of 2026. Second up, Deepgram raising $130 million at a valuation of $1.3 billion as investors pour money into voice AI powering customer service, sales, as well as consumer apps. And finally, a startup called Luminate Medical, betting that cancer care does not have to happen in a clinic, raising more than $20 million to bring chemo infusions and supportive care directly into the homes of patients who need it the most. All right, earlier this week, I had the opportunity to sit down for a second time with Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong. He is, of course, the executive chairman of Immunity Bio and NantWorks. We had the conversation here from the New York Stock Exchange. Take a look. Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong joins us once again for yet another one-on-one interview. He is the executive chairman of Immunity Bio and NantWorks. Doctor, thank you as always for taking the time. Let's dig right in and talk about this new exciting research. What is the key breakthrough in these new results, and why does it matter so much right now for lung cancer patients?
Well, the key breakthrough is the fact that forever now, with patients who receive checkpoint inhibitors, received chemotherapy called docetaxel and had about a 7 to 9 months survival. We've now shown with this combination of checkpoints plus Anktiva, we've almost tripled that survival. So that was the important result that we showed today, was that we can increase the survival by maintaining your immune competence.
Checkpoint inhibitors work, doctor, until they don't. What is failing in the immune system whenever patients relapse?
So as you know, in the market, both Merck, Pfizer, Bristol Myers have had multiple checkpoint inhibitors, and it's been a very big and major product. And the way checkpoint inhibitors work is by taking the brakes off T cells. The problem is that's a event that happens temporarily because the T cells get exhausted. Once the T cells get exhausted, unfortunately, the patients recur. So while checkpoint has been a really important addition now to the armamentarium of starting immunotherapy, it is not the full answer because patients have a very temporary response to that and finally get progression.
Dr. Soon-Shiong, why is absolute lymphocyte count such a critical signal, and why has it been overlooked?
So the absolute lymphocyte count is the number of cells in your body that are important to kill cancer. And these cells are the T cells that is activated by the checkpoint, but they have to be talking to other cells called the natural killer cells. So the absolute lymphocyte count is a measure of both all these cells that are actually responsible for killing cancer. It's been there for years and years. In fact, there's a reimbursable code to be able to measure it from your CBC, and nobody's used that because, unfortunately, until today, there's never been a treatment to reverse this lymphopenia. So if one were to Google lymphopenia and look at mortality rates, you will see even in the US general population, if you have a low ALC count, you have a lower survival rate. If you have cancer, you have a low ALC count, regardless of the cancer type, you have a lower survival rate. If you have sepsis, you have a lower survival rate. So the idea then that this ALC count matters, but the difference is today we can now change and modify and improve that ALC count. So no longer is it just a diagnostic test, it's a modifiable, treatable of an indication of whatever disease is by improving the ALC and thereby improving your immune system.
Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome back to Who in the F Knows 2026 predictions. I'm Scarlett Sieber from Money 2020, and today we're going to be diving into another bold forecast from our Money 2020 content team. If you're new here, here's the deal. I break down one prediction for the future of finance and give it a verdict. Either bank on it or bounce it. Because in fintech, you can hedge your bets, but let's be honest, who in the F really knows? Let's cash in. Today's prediction comes from Virginia Alvarez, one of the brilliant minds on our Money 2020 US content team. Virginia says that in 2026, stronger regulations will reshape finance to keep pace with AI, crypto, stablecoins, and tokenized stocks. She's talking about global frameworks and the G20 pushing faster, more transparent, interoperable payments, alongside clearer rules, fraud prevention, and scalability. Translation: a safer, more efficient, more accessible system for everyone. All right, Virginia, all right, I see it. Regulation is the plumbing that lets innovation flow without flooding the basement. On the bank on it side, yes, we need stronger rules for AI and crypto to build trust, protect consumers, and give serious builders a stable playing field. Without that, it's chaos, fraud, and a confidence gap. But here's the reality check and why I'm not ready to cash the full check yet. Regulation moves on a multi-year clock. Look at what's happening over in Europe with the crypto regime. MiCA entered into force in mid-23, but key rules only began applying to stablecoins in June 24 and to most other tokens and service providers in December 24. With technical standards continuing to roll out through 25 and beyond. So in other words, adopted isn't the same as fully implemented. Same story with AI. The EU AI Act was published in 24 of July, entered into force in August 24, and then phases obligations in. Initial prohibitions and literacy requirements in early 25, general purpose AI obligations starting in August 25, and then most remaining rules by August 26. The high-risk system compliance stretching all the way into 27. That is a staggered runway, people, not a single landing. Banking capital? Well, Basel III's endgame has been years in the making. Final reforms agreed in 2017, intended to apply for January 23, with jurisdictions still phasing pieces and aligning details through 25 to 27. Global convergence is slow by design. Even the G20's cross-border payments roadmap set 27 targets for speed, cost, access, and transparency, but we still got a lot to do yet. Momentum is good, but we don't have instant results. So my verdict on this one, Virginia, I have to say is only a partial bank on it. Maybe even a little bit of a bounce, but I love your idea, and here's why. Regulation is absolutely going to shape the rails for AI, crypto, stablecoins, and tokenized assets, but expecting fully harmonized, globally synchronized rules to remake finance by 26, girl, that's optimistic. The timelines tell you this is more comply and build over several years than flip the switch by next year. So what do you all think? Are we on the brink of a regulatory revolution, or should we bounce this check until the rules actually hit the street? Drop your thoughts, and don't forget to check the rest of Who in the F Knows 26 predictions at money2020.com, because in fintech, the only sure bet is that nothing is guaranteed.
Welcome back to the show. Very important update on the day's news. A very happy John Harbaugh day here in New York. To all who celebrate, the New York Giants actually have a football coach. All right, tomorrow here on Wall Street, we'll hear quarterly results in the morning from PNC Bank, M&T Bank Corp, as well as Citizens Financial Group. And after the close tomorrow, we'll hear from BOK Financial Group. Your final tail of the tape on this Thursday, the small caps and the New York Stock Exchange Composite Index both reaching fresh all-time highs. The S&P 500 and Dow finishing up as well. That is going to do it for this afternoon's edition of Taking Stock. Have a great night. We will see you tomorrow.